There's a battle you might be fighting alone. A silent, exhausting war against forces that rage just beneath the surface of your life. Thoughts that burn with forbidden desire, or resentments that smolder into bitter rage. Cravings that demand to be fed, leaving you feeling overwhelmed, ashamed. Convinced this struggle is just proof of your failure, evidence you're not enough. This isn't merely about bad behavior, it's the secret war within. The profound inner conflict of lust and anger. And the harder you try to live a life of faith, to pursue a higher calling, the more intense this battle seems to become. It feels like a cruel paradox. It feels like disqualification. But what if everything you thought about this toughest struggle was wrong? What if the very intensity of this inner conflict isn't a sign you're disqualified, but compelling evidence of something significant God is doing in you and through you? We often look at lust and anger only by their outward actions. The glance that stretches too long, the cutting word delivered in heat, the explosive temper, the silent, corrosive resentment. But ancient wisdom, stretching from the Proverbs of Solomon to the teachings of Jesus, invites us to look deeper. They reveal these aren't simply actions, they are powerful, often overwhelming internal forces. They are cravings that expertly hijack your focus, storms that gather and rage in your chest. They are symptoms of a deeper issue, an internal disorientation, a fundamental misplaced value. At their heart, lust and anger are twisted, disordered forms of seeking fulfillment, security, or control. But doing so apart from God, and at the expense of rightly valuing others. Lust isn't just sexual desire. It's a grasping, selfish demand to view another person as an object for personal gratification, tragically stripping away their inherent dignity. Anger, especially when it becomes destructive or breeds corrosive resentment, is a passionate response to perceived wrong that aggressively prioritizes my right to feel justified or my demand for control. Often viewing others as obstacles or enemies to be conquered or dismissed, rather than fellow images of God. They are potent manifestations of a deeper failure to value God and others with the ultimate worth they deserve. Think of modern parallels. The endless scroll of doom scrolling fueling anxiety, or rage bait, content feeding resentment. These are contemporary examples of disordered cravings and misplaced value, hijacking our attention and emotions. If lust and anger are these powerful internal forces, these insidious symptoms of a fundamental disorientation, why then, when we turn towards God, when we commit to living a life of faith, when we pursue a higher calling, does this inner battle often seem to get more intense, not less? It feels like a cruel, inexplicable paradox. It feels like definitive proof of failure. But here is the profound, counterintuitive truth that most discussions on this topic tragically miss. A truth that can shatter the chains of shame and fundamentally change how you see everything for those whom God is uniquely calling, for those He is strategically preparing for significant impact in the world. The very intensity of the inner battle with lust and anger might actually be one of the most compelling pieces of evidence of that calling. It is not a sign you are disqualified. It is a sign you are recognized as a potential threat to darkness. The enemy does not waste his fiercest ammunition, his most strategic targeted attacks, on those who pose no threat to his plans for the advancement of God's kingdom. The greater the potential impact of your God-given purpose, the more likely you are to experience a proportional intensity in your struggle with these core disorienting desires. This isn't merely spiritual speculation. It is a pattern woven into the very fabric of biblical and spiritual history. The Apostle Paul, hand-picked by God for extraordinary impact, understood this intimately. He spoke of a persistent, agonizing struggle, a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. He pleaded with God 3 times, begged him to remove it. But God's answer was the pivot point, the key that unlocks. Your struggle. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. God did not take away Paul's struggle. He revealed its profound redemptive purpose. It kept Paul utterly humble, ruthlessly dependent on God's grace, preventing him from becoming conceited, despite unprecedented revelations and a colossal calling. Your intense struggle with lust or anger might be serving a remarkably similar strategic divine purpose in your life right now. Not because God causes temptation. James 1:13 is undeniably clear. God tempts no one, but because he can redeem, strategically position, and powerfully forge strength out of even our most painful, persistent battles. He uses these struggles to shape us, humble us, make us utterly dependent on his grace, and precisely prepare us for the unique impact he intends for us to have. So how exactly does the divine architect use this inner battle with lust and anger to forge his purposes within you? Primarily through cultivating radical humility and unyielding perseverance. The constant raw awareness of your struggle, your inability to conquer these desires in your own strength, becomes God's powerful invitation to lean completely, unreservedly on his grace. This battle is spiritual conditioning. It builds resilience and fortitude, James 1:2-4, that simply cannot be developed in comfort. It forges a deep reliance on God in the difficult trenches of your own heart. And profoundly, this shapes your preparation for ministry. Your lived experience with this inner battle, your wounds, your scars, your deep reliance on grace, is not a barrier to serving God. It's his strategic training ground, forging the empathy, wisdom, and credibility to understand, comfort, and guide others wrestling with these same powerful forces. 2 Corinthians 1:4. He is redeeming your struggle for his redemptive work through you. So, if this battle is God's training ground, strategically forging you for impact, how do we actually fight from this perspective? How do we engage these powerful desires with purpose, fueled by grace, not just despair or shame? Let's look at how we put this into practice. Engaging this inner battle isn't about shame-fueled willpower or simply trying to stop bad behavior. It's about active, strategic, grace-powered discipline that aligns your entire life with God's design and purpose. It's fighting from a place of potential and calling, not from a place of perceived worthiness. Let's break this down into 4 practical responses. First, align your values. Remember that the power of lust and anger often stems from a fundamental, misplaced value, seeking fulfillment, security, or control selfishly apart from God. The foundational response, the core skill to cultivate, is to intentionally choose to value God and others rightly. See God as the ultimate source of fulfillment, security, justice, and control, not your own desires or demands. See others not as objects for use or obstacles dodging enemies to be overcome, but as fellow images of God, Genesis 1:27, principle with inherent, immeasurable dignity, worthy of unconditional love and respect. regardless of how they make you feel or what they do. Regularly reflect on who and what your life is truly prioritizing. This isn't just abstract. Developing this skill fundamentally changes how you look, how you react, how you engage the world. Second, discipline your input and actions. These destructive desires are powerful forces, often aggressively fed by what we consume and where we direct our energy. This is the strategic, purposeful starve it principle. For lust, ruthlessly guard your eyes and your mind. Develop the skill of diverting your gaze, filtering content, and redirecting your thoughts. Be fiercely intentional about the media you consume, the content you view, the places you allow your gaze or thoughts to linger. Recognize that certain inputs are expertly designed, bait crafted to hook your desires and derail your purpose. Starve the visual and mental feed. For anger, identify your triggers. The specific people, situations, or thought patterns that escalate frustration into destructive anger or corrosive resentment. Develop the skill of pausing, breathing deeply, and choosing a grace-filled, soft answer. Proverbs 15:1. Rather than an immediate, destructive reaction. This is about valuing peace and relationships over temporary justification. Channel energy towards purpose. Actively direct your energy towards your God-given calling and purposeful activities. A life filled with meaning, diligence, Proverbs 10:4, and outward focus has less internal space and energy for destructive desires to fester and dominate. Third, embrace dependence and grace. This inner battle is not won by sheer willpower or self-perfection. It's won by humbly, consistently leaning into the power of God made perfect in your weakness. Your struggle is God's constant invitation to live from the inexhaustible supply of His sufficient grace. This is valuing God's strength over your own limited capacity. Consistent spiritual disciplines. Make prayer, scripture meditation, worship non-negotiable priorities, not as religious duty, but as essential lifelines that connect you to the source of grace. Renew your mind, Romans 12:2 principle, and gradually, profoundly reshape your deepest desires from the inside out. Accountability and authentic community. Bring the hidden struggle into the light with a trusted, godly friend, mentor, or group. Shame thrives in secrecy, perpetuating the cycle of failure. Grace, healing, and strength flourish in honest, supportive, faith-filled community. Consider using technology like accountability apps or joining structured online or in-person mentorship platforms designed for this specific support. See weakness as sacred opportunity. Instead of viewing your struggle with shame or defeat, see it as the very thing that keeps you humble, ensures you remain dependent on God's grace, and creates sacred space for His power to be uniquely evident through your life. This is where your story intersects with Paul's. Finding strength precisely when you are weak, so Christ's power rests on you. Fourth, see your struggle as training for ministry and redemptive impact. Your experience wrestling with this inner battle isn't a sign you're unqualified for God's purposes. It's His specific, strategic, rigorous preparation. This is about valuing God's long-term purpose over present comfort. Your wounds, your scars, your moments of wrestling with lust or anger, your deep-lived reliance on grace. This forging process creates empathy, wisdom, and credibility that cannot be acquired any other way. It uniquely equips you to truly understand, comfort, and effectively guide others facing similar battles. 2 Corinthians 1:4. The very dynamics of the desires you fight teach you invaluable lessons about the nature of temptation, the insidious ways the enemy works, the deceitfulness of sin, and the transformative, redemptive power of God's grace in the trenches. This is invaluable hard-won training, redeemed by God for His purposes. It's about leveraging the learning from your experience for His redemptive work through you. This is the perspective shift that doesn't just change how you fight. It changes the very meaning of the battle itself. Your struggle with lust or anger isn't evidence you're failing God. It is compelling evidence you are strategically positioned for His purposes, drawing closer to Him and being actively shaped by His hand. Romans 8:28-29 promises that in all things God works for the good of those called according to His purpose, with the ultimate goal being profound conformity to the image of Christ. Your inner battle is not derailing God's plan. It is central to how He is forging you for it. The question isn't whether you will face this struggle. The question is whether you will allow that struggle to drive you deeper into dependence on God's grace, align your values more fully with His, and allow Him to use it for His glory and the redemptive impact of others. Where you see weakness and shame, God sees potential being refined. Where you see failure, God sees faithfulness in returning to His grace. And where you see a secret, painful struggle, God sees someone being forged for an extraordinary purpose, equipped for impactful ministry. If this perspective has ignited hope, here's a challenge. This week, pray, God, show me the purpose behind this struggle. Commit to one small step from this video and comment your choice below. Share one way your struggle has deepened your faith. Like and subscribe to the Sacred Archive for more deep dives into life's toughest battles from biblical truth.